All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going to tackle something that probably feels like a total fantasy to most people, but is actually grounded in hard, undeniable data. Have you ever actually sat down and done the math on your career? And no, I'm not talking about looking at your current salary or checking your 401k balance. I'm talking about the exact mathematical formula required to completely escape the daily grind. Because the truth is, escaping the 9 to 5 isn't some fuzzy, far-off pipe dream, and it definitely isn't some reckless leap of faith. It's a math problem, and it is highly solvable. Let's dive in.
So I want you to ask yourself a pretty brutal question right now. How many Mondays are left? Seriously, how many more commutes? How many more of those meetings that absolutely positively should have just been an email? I want to introduce you to Ben. Ben's a software engineer. He was 6 years into what looked on paper like the perfect corporate job. He had the great salary, all the fancy perks, but every single Sunday night, without fail, that same familiar knot of dread would twist up in his stomach. He felt completely and utterly trapped. He was just counting down the Mondays, and his career was starting to feel a lot less like a calling and way more like a prison sentence.
Ben described it perfectly. He said the golden handcuffs were feeling way more like a vice grip. And you know what? His story isn't unique at all. So many of us are just totally fed up with grinding it out 40 hours a week, only to feel completely drained by the weekend. So why do we stay? Well, a lot of it comes down to societal pressure, right? We chase these fancy job titles to make our parents proud, or honestly, just to look good on Instagram. We get trapped in this psychological need for approval, and we rely on this false, far-off hope of just saving 10% of our income and waiting around until we turn 65. But to actually change your trajectory, you have to be fed up enough to do something about it.
Okay, let's move into Section 1, the silent wealth killers, and why stagnant cash is a losing battle.
Look, we're all taught the exact same playbook. Land a good job, put your money in a savings account. It sounds like great, responsible advice, but there is a massive flaw here. If the cost of literally everything around you goes up by 3% a year because of inflation, but that savings account of yours is only kicking back a measly 1% in interest, you are not breaking even. You are actively losing 2% of your buying power every single year. It's like trying to fill up a bucket that has a giant hole in the bottom. Whenever inflation outpaces your savings rate, letting your cash sit stagnant is literally making you poor.
And then, oh boy, then there's the other silent wealth killer, taxes. Welcome to the middle-class nightmare, folks. See, as an employee, you're operating on a very specific order of operations. You earn your income, the government immediately takes its tax cut right off the top, and you only get to spend whatever is left over. But the wealthy, especially business owners, they are playing a completely different game. Their order of operations is they earn their income, they spend it on legitimate expenses to grow their business, and only at the very end do they pay taxes on the leftovers. This one simple switch in the order of operations, it changes absolutely everything.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the solvable math problem, the exact formula to actually buy back your time.
The core of this entire strategy is based on a movement that has already mapped this all out for us. You might have heard of it. It's called FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early. The whole premise is super simple. If you save aggressively and invest smartly, you can build a massive nest egg that you can live off forever. We're talking about taking back your time decades before your 60s. And this isn't just guesswork. This is entirely based on a massive piece of research from the 1990s known as the Trinity Study. That study proved mathematically that if you invest your money, you can safely withdraw 4% of your portfolio every single year, adjust for inflation, and have an extremely high probability of your money lasting for at least 30 years.
Now, that 4% rule gives us something absolutely incredible. It gives us a magic multiplier, and that number is 25. Seriously, burn this number into your brain, because this is the absolute key to calculating your exact target. Since 25 is the mathematical inverse of 4%, all you have to do is take your total annual expenses and multiply them by 25. Boom, that's your FIRE number. It is the exact amount of money you need to have invested so that going to work becomes something you choose to do, not something you have to do just to survive.
Let's actually look at how much power this formula hands over to you. Let's say you currently spend $60,000 a year. Using our multiplier, your required FIRE target is $1.5 million. But if you can figure out how to live happily on $40,000 a year, your target drops to $1 million. You just shrink your goal by $500,000. The beautiful mathematical reality here is that every single dollar you cut from your annual spending reduces your required freedom target by $25. It takes this huge, vague, intimidating goal and turns it into a very tangible, attackable target.
All right, let's shift gears to Section 3, the hybrid exit strategy, replacing your job's function piece by piece.
Listen, escaping the 9 to 5 does not mean just quitting your job on a Tuesday without a parachute. You need a strategy, specifically the 3-step side hustle scale. Step 1 is the active bridge. Take Mark, for instance. He's a project manager. Instead of just quitting, he started consulting on the weekends, using his existing skills to build a safety net. This is all about building a runway. Emily, a designer, did the same thing. She saved up 12 to 24 months of living expenses first, which made the fear of walking away totally vanish. Then you hit step 2, the system shift, where you start detaching your time from your money by automating things. And finally, step 3, the asset build, where you turn that income into real, lasting assets. Most people ask the wrong question. They ask, how much money do I need to never work again, which feels totally impossible. The right question is, how much do I need to replace my job's function?
Now, to successfully pull this off in the real world, you're going to need some high-leverage skills. Consider Sarah. She was a teacher who took the time to learn SEO and content writing. Within months, she was literally out-earning her old teaching salary as a freelancer. But I gotta warn you, you also have to plan for the descent. As you leave the corporate bubble, you're going to face hidden costs. Healthcare is a massive one. Your job-sponsored plan might only cost you $1,600 out of your paycheck, but that exact same plan on the open market? Try $8,000. You absolutely have to factor that huge gap into your FIRE number. And keep in mind, if you're retiring at 40, your money needs to last 50 years, not 30. So you might need to drop that withdrawal rate down to a safer 3 or 3.5%.
Okay, keeping that hybrid exit strategy in the back of your mind, I want you to imagine something. Imagine you build up a consistent little side hustle outside your day job that brings in just $500 a month. Now, most people look at that and think, hey, cool, that's some nice extra coffee money, maybe it covers a car payment. But we aren't most people. We are hackers of the FIRE math. We know about that 25x multiplier. So $500 a month is $6,000 a year, right? Because of our 25x multiplier, generating that $6,000 a year on your own knocks a staggering $150,000 off your required investment portfolio. Let that sink in for a second. By building a sustainable, relatively small income stream, you suddenly don't need to save up that extra 150 grand in your retirement account. You've effectively short-circuited the whole system. This right here is the hybrid exit model in action. You're covering a chunk of your expenses with flexible work you actually choose to do, which drastically lowers the mountain you have to climb.
Which leads us to Section 4, the wealthy playbook, moving from compound interest to financial velocity.
So, most of us are taught to rely entirely on compound interest, which, if you really think about it, is basically just a hoarding strategy. You park your money in an account, you let it sit there for decades, and you leave it completely exposed to inflation and taxes. The wealthy, they completely abandon that strategy. They use something called financial velocity. It's all about circulation. Instead of a dollar having just one job sitting in a bank somewhere, the goal is to keep your money moving. You make that single dollar do multiple jobs at the exact same time, which creates wealth so much faster.
To get that kind of velocity, you really have to understand the playbook. And listen to me carefully here. These aren't shady, secret loopholes. They are highly public government incentives. The government intentionally writes the tax code to reward the people who act as the biggest engines of the economy. We're talking about job creators in small business and housing providers in real estate. Furthermore, when you own property that goes up in value, you can actually borrow against that equity, and because that pulled out cash is technically a loan, it is totally tax-free. You then take that tax-free cash and circulate it to buy even more assets.
Let's ground this in reality so you can see how powerful it is. Meet Ruben, a doctor, and his wife Clarice, a nurse. They were making great money, but they were getting absolutely crushed by taxes as W-2 employees. So they decided to make a massive strategic pivot. Clarice actually quit her nursing job to become a full-time real estate professional. By moving into a sector that the government actively wants to reward, in their very first year doing this, their tax bill dropped by $50,000. That was literally more money than she was making as a nurse, all simply by playing by the government's preferred rules.
But hey, here is the really hard truth of all this. The economic system we live in is literally designed to profit from your ignorance. Banks make money from your debt. Corporations make money from your constant spending. And the government, they make way more money when you stay an employee paying the highest tax rates. The only person who is going to profit from your financial education is you. It takes what we call drastic personal responsibility to sit down and learn these rules. Because ultimately, the cost of staying ignorant about this stuff is so much greater than the cost of just taking the time to educate yourself.
The tax code, the rules for business, the 4% rule, that massive 25x FIRE multiplier, it's all public information. You have the framework now. You know the formula. Escaping the 9 to 5 isn't some crazy dream. It's a specific, highly solvable math problem. And the variables in that problem change entirely based on the choices you decide to make today. So I'm going to leave you with one final provocative thought. You've got the data. You have the strategy to finally buy back your time. So, what's your number?